Now I'm going to say welcome to everyone who's just coming in. Hopefully you can hear me and see me okay. If you can't, please let us know in the chat. I'm Sydney. I'm the Customer Success Manager and also Research Application Specialist. And we have Moose here, who is the full stack developer, and then Nicolas, who is the founder and lead developer. And so we're going to hear from both Moose and Nicolas today. There's a lot of improvements and new functions in the new version of eLabFTW, which is going to be out really, really soon, we think. I don't know if anyone has a timeline available for that.
Yeah, soon is a good timeline.
Okay, so that will be relevant to everyone because we'll be encouraging you to update really soon. So we've got 67 people, so that's great. So maybe let's begin. So the first person who's going to speak today is Philipp Seeber from the University of Vienna. And we're really interested in people who can talk about ways in which they've customized their use of the API and have figured out really elaborate ways to use eLab. So I'm really looking forward to this talk. So thank you so much, Philipp, for being here.
Thank you very much, Sydney. I will start sharing. Hopefully that should work. All right.
Okay,
so
great.
thank you both.
I'm going to turn off my camera just so that it's not distracting.
All right. So thank you both, Sydney and Nicolas, for inviting me. My name is Philipp. I partially suspect I got this invitation because Nicolas wanted to see Haskell programs in real life. I work at the University Compute Center here in Jena, doing all kinds of IT stuff from infrastructure coding to HPC. And here in Jena, we have developed a program that we call Nyarlathotep, and it implements automated pipelines, automatic processing for eLabFTW. And I'm going to show you a little bit what the concept here is, how that works, and how we are using it. So the idea here is that we want to have some kind of automatic processing of data that lives within eLabFTW. Because this, for one, enhances traceability and reproducibility. Yeah, if you have your code and workflows in a central location, and you can use eLabFTW to track those processing steps, but it also possibly eliminates the installation of complex tooling or software on local machines, and also removes the burden to remember to do possibly some conversion and automation steps. And there's a clear inspiration where that project came from, and those inspirations were other ELN softwares like Nomad Oasis, CamMotion, which basically take your primary data, usually in some proprietary format. Imagine uploading an NMR spectrum from Bruker and converting them on the fly during upload into a more open format. And this is something we wanted to build for our eLabFTW. And before I show you how this works, I will show you this thing actually working. So we have an example here. Yeah, this is some molecular dynamics data, but that doesn't actually matter. And to make such a thing being recognized by Nyarlathotep, we have to add a magic tag, which is called Nyarlathotep do, and instructs the backend to grab up that job and select a workflow based on the remaining tags of the experiment. You see the tag now changed to Nyarlathotep doing, and soon afterwards you will get a comment instructing you that the backend is currently running, doing stuff, and you see we got some files uploaded here, which in that case very simple. It was doing some plots, automatically uploading them, and then changing the tag here to Nyarlathotep done, so that the backend knows it doesn't have to process that again. In consequence, you could also, of course, remove that tag, add Nyarlathotep do again, and repeat the processing, should that be required for some reason, because you got an error or whatever. All right, so how does that work? Say we have an eLabFTW instance, for example, that one here, but possibly we also have more than one. Yeah? For example, in our case, because individual workgroups host their own version next to the one that we centrally provide in the compute center. And then there's Nyarlathotep, and Nyarlathotep will try to get experiments from those instances that carry that special Nyarlathotep do label. And for those experiments, it will also get its uploads and provide them locally. And it will select a workflow based on the tags the experiment has. And this may be configured in the config YAML file. It's relatively simple YAML format that describes a polling interval and API keys provided via environment variables. And Nyarlathotep will then pass this stuff to some workers analyzers, however we want to call them. Yeah, some for spectroscopy, some for simulation, some for microbiology, some for audio transcription for our friends in social sciences who are doing interviews, whatever, yeah, depending on the tag, post results to them and wait for a response of processed data and re-upload them then to eLabFTW instances. There's an additional component, namely Nyarlathotep provides some metrics regarding the processing. So how many experiments have been processed, how long did it take, how large were the files, but also how much disk usage is made by eLabFTW. And so you see the key component is to get some of these clients or workers running. And the idea here is that Nyarlathotep as an executable, you can ask it to print the API specification of the workers. Yeah, so you get this YAML file in Open API format, similar as what eLabFTW has, but much simplified. And then we may generate one of those workers server implementations where one of the Open API generators in basically any language you wish. So you get the server implementation auto-generated, and you just will have to hook up the processing code to such server endpoints. I will show you a quick example, which is in Haskell, because I write Haskell, but it's very simple. Yeah, so we have a main function, which is the entry point of an executable. And there's not too much going on. Yeah, we get auto-generated this run worker server function here. And the only thing we have to provide is a worker function. Yeah? And the worker function here takes a worker request, which is a JSON object. Yeah? Imagine here on my side like a C structure. Do some unwrapping, getting the relevant data for our analysis out of that JSON object. Pass it to our run function, in that case, the work directory and 2 files, and produce a worker result, which is also a JSON object. And the only remaining point is to actually have your analysis code. Without any specialties, there's nothing left over from being an HTTP server. In fact, you may have this function already, in my case, taking a directory and 2 files and producing 3 plots from that. So if you have existing code, it is relatively easy to hook that up to such a logic. In Jena, we have basically like 2 deployment models of that scenario. One is we have a central instance provided here in the compute center, where Nyarlathotep and the workers run on a Kubernetes cluster, where we can serve multiple eLabFTW instances and multiple workgroups with all the advantages that you have from doing the hosting in a compute center, namely centralized monitoring, hardware, and maintenance stuff. But the disadvantages, of course, if you want to add a new workflow, it needs to be provided either through a Git merge request, ticketing system, whatever. So there is some auditing that the analyzers and workers do not crash your clusters, process stuff with high CPU load for many hours, stuff like that. And of course, you may also run that locally. Simplified Docker Compose setup, possibly even on the same server you're running your eLabFTW on. In that case, it likely only serves that eLabFTW instance, and it's much simpler having a group admin and or user being able to add such new workflows to that project. Another thing here that I want to show, as I said, Nyarlathotep provides an open metrics endpoint. Here's the plot showing the disk usage per user from the reports API of eLabFTW. I've hooked it up here to that because we are monitoring like that. People may upload very large files to our instance, and we just want to keep track if somebody produces terabytes of data so that we may talk to this person. But as I said, there's also statistics on processed experiments, processing time, success, and failure rates, stuff like that available via this open metrics API endpoint. With that, let's wrap up. So Nyarlathotep is a young project. I've started that like, I don't know, 8 months ago or so. It's still changing. I'm thinking about what else to do with that. Nevertheless, it's been working nicely since that point. Our specific use case, maybe to give you an idea, is to actually collect data from chemical compounds that are available in experiments in our eLabFTW instance, normalize them, standardize some file format stuff, and build up an external machine learning database with that. Yeah, so you're of course free to write a worker that passes its data again to another point or populates a database or whatever. If you're interested in the code, that's freely available on our local Git. Yeah, it's also an open source license, of course. And you may look at it, but you may not open an issue because it's on a local instance. But if there's interest, I may be able to move that into a public GitLab instance. Yeah, happy to have you around. Happy that you've listened to my talk. And of course, questions are welcome.
Thank you so much, Philip. So we have one question in the chat. I encourage you all to use the question and answer function if you can. Looks like that one got explained already. The question was, what is a monad? And Nico says a monad is just a monoid in the category of endofunctors.
So it's kind of a geeky inside joke. It's just that Philip showed some Haskell code. Pretty sure we maybe are 5 in the room that knows what is Haskell and what is a monad. So that was a little joke from Mahdi, who is also a programmer.
Oh.
No, but I can start with the question. Philip, to detect when a tag has been added with the do keyword, you periodically poll the list of recently changed experiments, I guess?
Actually, I'm using the search function of the API to query for all experiments visible within the scope of the API token that have that tag.
Yeah, so you periodically poll this to okay. So I think this kind of workflow would benefit greatly if one day we have the possibility to add a webhook system where you could define every time there is a add tag event, propagate this event to also this service or this service, like make a post request or whatever. This way you wouldn't have to poll periodically for it. I think it would be great. Yeah.
Yes, that would certainly be more efficient.
There is a question in the Q&A from Alexander Haller. How are the access rights managed, API keys, etc.?
Exactly. Yeah, you give Nyarlathotep an API key, and Nyarlathotep may do whatever this API key can do. But in fact, I've written it so that you will only get comments and new files. It will never edit your experiment. But otherwise, yes, the API key gives the scope.
And again, we also have in mind this idea of revamping a bit the API key aspects with having, for instance, a public part and a secret part, like something that we see a lot now on other APIs, on other services, and also scoped permission for API keys. So that, for instance, you could define your API keys that can only create and edit comments, create and edit files, and that's it. And this way you're sure that even if you do a mistake in your script or there is some issue, the API key just simply do not have the right to edit the main text or to create an experiment or this kind of stuff.
That seems like a feature a lot of people would appreciate. So we have another question from Alexander. So currently you need an API key that connects everything. How does this work for multiple teams?
Okay, you do not necessarily need an API key that can access everything. So Nyarlathotep may accept multiple API keys for users. Yeah. So if you imagine you have a team admin, he or she could, for example, provide that API key just for the scope of their team. And one Nyarlathotep instance may talk to multiple users.
Okay, great. And now we have a question from John. It says, thanks for an interesting presentation. Are you storing the pipeline outputs in eLab or in separate storage with a record of the processing in eLab?
Depends on what you mean with the pipeline output. So I store so part of the worker response is, let's say, like a logging message. Yeah, that goes directly into the comments. The other part is like the files. Those are uploaded to eLabFTW, but for local processing, so that the worker may access those, I use basically shared Docker volumes. They are processed within that. New files may be created in that get then uploaded to eLabFTW. After processing is done, the shared Docker volume is emptied again.
Okay, thank you so much, Philip. That's really a lot of work you've done in 8 months, and it seems really exciting. So if you ever have an update in the future and you want to come back and talk to us about how it's going, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And we might ask you for your slides to accompany the video, but up to you.
Certainly. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Okay, so the next speaker is going to be Moose, who's going to talk about the brand new spreadsheet editor, which is a function that a lot of people have been really excited about, and we're finally making progress. So really excited to hear about that.
Progress, nice say. So hello everyone. So yeah, we need to talk about the spreadsheet editor today. Let me introduce this to you. So as you know, there's been a lot of requests either on the GitHub community, on the emails, GitHub, etc., asking for a spreadsheet editor that allows you to import data, to edit it and export it, or save it as an attachment to your experimental resource. So that was the first and main idea here, because this will now be possible thanks to this spreadsheet editor. Let me show you what it looks like. Here. So I have an example file here. I can just load it directly into the spreadsheet editor, and this will show me the data that I can just update easily and save back to have it in my uploads directly, or I can also export it with this current file types. It allows you to take classic spreadsheet file types like CSV, XLSX, ODS, etc. So here, let me show you with an example with a file that has a lot of lines. For example, it will ask you if you want to use the first row as the column headers. You can also choose no and just adapt your file as you want. And this will allow you to just edit everything you need and save it back here as an attachment. So my updated file in CSV or etc. The idea here is just to have a simple editing text, because this is a better version, as it's mentioned here, which is to take into consideration, because as of now, we suggest to not handle sensitive data with this editor, because we have yet to explore all the limitations of the editor. There's also the fact that it does not handle the calculations yet. So if you import data with calculations, it will display the results of the calculation cells, but the formulas themselves have not been yet implemented. We still do not have Microsoft Steam Power to make an editor that can replace your day-to-day Excel. But the idea is to get close to something as fluent and flawless editing process inside eLabFTW. So that's why you have this new spreadsheet editor. As for now, it's better to handle tables containing plain text and numbers. It's fully compatible. But for the rest, as I suggested, for example, graphics, it will not be handled. I think I have, for example, here a file that has some graphics. It's supposed to look like this inside an Excel, but when you import it, it will just copy the data as it appears here. But for the time being, you can still create new spreadsheet as well. Have your sample, for example, new sample here. I will just make it the column name. You can delete this up, and I have here another stuff and quantities, for example, 1, and you can just save it as an attachment to eLab. New spreadsheet. So that's the idea. It's still a work in progress, so there's a lot of stuff to improve, because as I said, we don't have an Excel sheet yet. And the idea is to get the formulas working in the further versions, maybe. So I think I had a lot of comments on the GitHub community, so they're already being addressed. And thanks a lot for the feedbacks that are really fast. And I think that's it for this editor. I don't have a lot more to show you because you can also just test it on the demo. There's already been a lot of updates since the demo version, but sure it is. So, and I don't want to spoil the other news on the upcoming version, so I let Nico have it for that part. I think that's it for me.
Maybe you can show a bit also the new things in the scheduler, because you've been the one.
Yep, totally. Yeah. On the scheduler, there was also the fact that now, when you have a new resource, just a resource that's bookable. I will make this one. I'll go to the scheduler. For the people who booked it, you can now send an email. So this will allow you to just, well, here's the description, to inform people about something that has happened to a resource that you have booked. So it will contact only people who booked it in the past 4 months or the future 4 months. For example, here I'll say update, this item is no longer available, and it will send directly an email to the recipients. As I can see here on my email, it's plain simple and just useful to inform people. That's the idea here. There's also been additions on, I think, the permissions it was, because now we can prevent the experiments or resources to have some base permissions. For example, you don't want on your instance to allow people having only owner permissions on the experiments. You can do that. And there was also some issues that were fixed because some experiment had some conflicts when the templates had immutable permissions. So there has been a lot of work around the permissions as well. Also, Nico did some on the inventory, I think, and that will be shown later. So if you have any question, feel free to just ask me, be it on the spreadsheet editor or the new updates.
Thank you so much, Moose. It looks really great.
My pleasure.
I'm super excited to see some progress on this. And that's one thing you were working on over the summer, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. There was a lot of stuff working on, but this one was the biggest one as it's something we had to do from scratch. And there's not a lot of easy ways to implement something as big as Excel. So that's why it's really a work in progress, and it has to be completed thanks to the feedback of all the community and the one that the teams are making, etc.
We have a few questions. Suzanne asks, for the spreadsheet, which formats can be imported?
So for the formats, it's mostly every classic spreadsheet file type. So CSV, XLSX, ODS, and whatever type of spreadsheet you can use. I don't know which one can be listed, but you can also just ask for them to be implemented, and we can work on that.
I have a question. What's the next step for you on the spreadsheet editor? Like, what's the thing that you're going to work on next?
Well, for now, I will have to, let me just share my screen again. As you can see on the demo, there was a lot of stuff that was not doable with the spreadsheet editor. Let me create a new experiment. Here I will have this Excel file. So you couldn't, for example, just type in a new column or a new row. It was kind of limited. When you create a new sheet as well, you just had this single cell that couldn't do a lot. So that's the kind of stuff we've been working on these days. So now when you create a new one, you have the possibility to just write whenever you want, wherever you want, and it will just place it as the next empty row or empty column. So that's something I would like to make better because, for example, well, as you see now, if I write at this place here, it will put it at the next empty column, and that's not yet how we want it to be. So there's a lot of little improvements that can be still done here.
Yeah, it's basically the user experience,
yes,
inputting data that we try to improve. And
exactly.
So what you showed most that you had only one cell. It's just that you needed to click this button plus minus to add a new row, which
This one at
this
that
one,
was at the top.
which is not great. You don't
Yes.
want to do that every time you want
Mm.
to add data, because we want to be close to the experience that you have in LibreOffice Calc or Excel. And in this spreadsheet software, when you open an empty spreadsheet, you have an infinity of columns and an infinity of rows. You can scroll
Exactly.
for all your life until you run out of memory. But yeah, so basically that's what I asked Moose just
Yesterday.
just came
I'm
back
back from holidays.
from holiday on day, and I was like, okay, so we need to do this and this and this and that. And I think it's already there because I also told him, you have to do it before the community meeting.
You have one morning and so
Yeah.
that's done, but yeah, there's still a lot of
Efficient.
improvements. Yes. I'm trying.
Okay, there's some questions. One is, can one choose which sheet of an Excel spreadsheet is imported, or does it default to the first sheet?
Yeah, it defaults to the first sheet because we also had we investigated for some libraries that could have a real LibreOffice type of feeling, but they had a lot of limitations, so we couldn't implement that. And as of now, I don't yet have a way to select the sheet that's going to be the first one loaded. But I think that can be implemented, and it has to be. It's on the to-do list, but it's not yet here. Some
I
improvements.
think you're touching a particular aspect also of how we choose to implement it, is that we could use some completely outdated and unmaintained UI library, but that's not the choice that we make, because we think long term, and in the long term we want to be able to maintain it ourselves, and we want to rely on as few external dependencies as possible. So we have one dependency on a particular package for reading the Excel stuff, but the interface is done by us by using the EdgeGrid library that we also use elsewhere in the software. So we really try to have a holistic approach, I would say, to have something that makes sense and that we can maintain on the long term. Which the bad part of that, of course, is that it takes a bit more time to implement everything, such as the next question from Alexander.
Yeah, so the next question from Alexander is, are simple calculations on the roadmap? I assume this is what most users are looking for after this.
Yes, so that's a big question because it's not as simple as it seems. We are looking for libraries that could do that, and maybe also, just as Nico said, implement them ourselves, take inspiration from how it's done elsewhere, because it will also be kind of complicated to have everything that Excel has as a calculation. Be it the multiplications, sums, that can be simple, but everything that's related to complex tables can be really, really complicated to transfer into some front end, some web browser data. So that's kind of the issue right now. But simple calculations for rows and columns can be looked into, yes.
Great. Yeah, I know this is a really desirable feature. Then Marvin is asking, is there a size limitation with the spreadsheet in terms of the number of rows and columns?
For the moment, not yet. I haven't tried with a million row Excel sheet, but I've tried with a lot of columns and rows up to 10,000, and it does not cause any problem. So I was also going to ask to the community if it's interesting to have, how do I say, the pagination, because for the time being, we can just import, for example, this file that has 5,000 lines. And initially, I just had the 5,000 shown like this, but now I made a pagination. So that's something we would like to hear from if you have any interesting feedback. But for the time being, no limitations found.
Okay, and then just a few more questions. There's one about the permissions, I'll ask that after, but there's one about, can you freeze the first row like in Excel?
Not yet. I reckon that's possible for the first row and the first column. For the time being, we just have the headers that can be defined when you import your file. You can choose not to have it as the header, which will appear like this. and then you will have basic columns that you can rename also, or you can just decide to have it as the header.
In the compounds table, you can lock columns
Yes.
on one side. So I guess
Mm.
this HGGrid library is able to do it
Yes.
with column. I'm guessing also with rows. And so I guess it's possible, and that is something also that Moustapha will implement this afternoon. So it will be probably
I'm doing it right now. It's done.
Okay, and then there's a question about, is chart or graph generation being planned?
Well, that will have to be talked about with the team, because for now, not yet, because there's the calculation that's been a priority, I think, in the list of stuff to do for the spreadsheet. But maybe later on, but we don't have a
Yeah,
timeline
exactly.
for that.
It's basically the calculation is something that we want to implement first. And then, of course, having a chart or a graph generation by selecting some rows and some column and clicking a button so that you have some graphs that appear. Lightweight, of course, like it won't be like the full-fledged graph software that exists, but in most cases, you want a scatter plot with X and Y, and so this we could probably do it relatively easily, I think.
Okay, and another question, what happens when you import a sheet with multiple tables?
As in multiple sheets or multiple?
Maybe like multiple tables inside one sheet.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, for that, it also just appears with if you have two tables and they have a space in between, it will just appear with the space in between, which doesn't make it as readable as it could be in an Excel, but it still
Could be worse.
gets in the data. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like it's
That's
really
why
cool
we're
that it
suggesting.
can bring in something with graphics, ignore the graphics, and like
Yes.
actually capture the information. That seems
Yes, exactly. It's like take the
good.
text and implement it, but for the rest, it's still a work in progress. That's why I'm suggesting.
Also the idea of this spreadsheet editor is really for inputting tabular data. If you use Excel as some kind of word processor with a lot of background and foreground colors and text formatting and clearly not that for that. But when you are recording some outputs from an instrument for different samples or whatever, and you want to store that directly in the notebook, that's a good option. And the other option is also, and maybe also something, Moustapha, that's something I was just thinking, that when you upload an Excel file coming from elsewhere, from whatever, and you click on the thumbnail to load it inside the spreadsheet editor, maybe we can load it read-only at first, so that we prevent accidental edition. And if you want to edit it, then you unlock it so that the interface becomes editable, and you can actually edit directly one cell or two or three, and then click save, and it overwrites the current file.
The current file, yeah.
I think it could be nice.
So just a few comments from the chat. The blog post that describes the new version is already live, and Nico has posted it in the chat where everyone should be able to see it. Some people are asking, when will the spreadsheet editor be available? From what I know, it's already available in the newest alpha version. Nico will talk more about that. And then Alexander is saying that from feedback from users, simple math should be enough for most of them. So I guess that's a good sign.
That's great, yeah.
It doesn't have to be super complicated to be really useful for lots of people. Martin is saying that limits on the number of rows and columns should be communicated if possible. Pagination, I don't even know this word. Pagination is great.
Pagination, yeah, I don't know how to say it in English, but now we're limiting to
pagination, huh?
Pagination, I can imagine in French, but not in English.
Because I do have it in the, for example, code documentation. So
yeah,
most that I read. Okay.
So, and maybe it could be an on-off option, and then some people are discussing that in the chat.
Okay, yeah,
yeah,
totally. It could be a setting that you choose to have if you want the pagination or not, as a user preference. And yes, totally, yeah, that could be a great option.
Okay, so I think the last question corresponds more to base permissions, which I think Nico's going to talk about. So I'll just say thank you, Moustapha, for all of the work that you've done. It's really exciting, and looking forward to seeing where it goes next.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your attention, everyone.
And am I right in saying, Nico, that you're going to be able to address this question that's available?
Yeah. So,
Sure.
let me share. I think I will share just this. So, as you all know, in the permissions, we have the base permissions, which by default includes only owner. And then you have only owner and admins, only owner of the team, everyone with an account, and everyone, including image users. So some instances choose to remove the only owner possibility because it could be problematic that some members could kind of hide their work from the PI or from someone else. For other users, it's the opposite. They actually need to have this, and maybe also the only owner is a good first step to then also just add someone else in the permission that might not be just the admin of the team. Anyway, up until now, you had the possibility, so in the current stable version, you have this possibility of having the only owner base permission that is removed. And in the upcoming version, we completed this existing one by adding also the others. And I think probably this makes also a lot of sense that you can remove this one or maybe this one just to make sure that, like if you really want to prevent accidental leaking of things among your teams and among your users, you can prevent that. So that's the best permission. Basically, it becomes possible as a sysadmin to remove the possibility to use some of the base permission. You need to have at least one. You cannot remove all of them. Yeah, you see, you have a little error. So you need to have at least one. Okay. So regarding the new things from the application, from the new version, so I put online the blog post of the new version. So it is present here. And there are many things, and I think the first big thing that I should talk about is that before, and maybe I can show here. So before, or maybe I don't know. Maybe I should have like an older version to show you. But before, as an admin, you had here the status and the categories tab because only an admin was able to edit the categories and the status. So categories for experiment and status for both experiment and resources. And also the categories for resources were actually also the templates for resources. So if you had a category microscope, you had one template for all the microscopes, and a category corresponded to a template for resources, which was not the case for experiments. So it led to some sort of asymmetry between the experiments which had proper templates and categories which are just categories, and the resources, they didn't have templates, and the categories were also the templates. So we put everything à plat, and we said, okay, so let's make it much easier to reason with. Resource categories are exactly the same as experiment categories, and resource templates are just templates that can have a category or not, but they are just templates. So this also comes with these new menus here that are a bit more complete and also allows you to quickly list experiment from a particular category or only your experiment or all the experiments. And also you have a little search bar so that you can quickly search for something that you're looking for. And so basically this is kind of a big change that hopefully will make it easier for new users to reason with the software. And also there is this idea that before you needed to have an admin access to be able to edit categories and status. Nowadays, it's not the case anymore, meaning that every user can edit status and categories. Fear not, as an admin, you have the possibility to revert to the previous behavior, meaning that you can, as an admin, prevent users from creating and editing categories and status, both for experiment and resources. So again, as in many aspects of the software, we give the choice of selecting what kind of permissions you allow your users to have in your team. So that's the big thing. This we already talked about. Then there is something new also, is that as a sysadmin, in the users table, which has also been redesigned, as you can see, you can double click a user to see the user entry here, and you can allow the user to manage the user's team association. So basically, when you give that user this right, this section here will be available to them in the admin panel. So they need to be admin so that they can manage by themselves, without being sysadmin, the relationship between users and teams. And so previously, you needed to be sysadmin to add a user in a team or to remove a user in a team. Or you needed to have this setting to allow admins to import existing user inside their team. So this setting, I think, could be interesting if you have some profile of user in your instance that should not get sysadmin rights, but should still be able to maybe archive someone in a given team. As you can see, the archival state is now linked to a team. So before it was linked to a user itself. So a user could be archived or not. Now a user could be archived in a team or not. And so this also makes it pretty different from the previous behavior. And I think we still need to continue to work on the different use case of when it should be archived, by whom, should they still be able to access their stuff, should their stuff be hidden, etc., etc. But we're getting there. Okay, another aspect that we can see right now is that there is this possibility to allow users to manage compounds or inventory location. So before showing you that, I just want to mention that I'm talking about the compounds database here that is accessible to everyone. Everyone can add something or edit something or delete something as long as it's not bound to a resource or an experiment. Same with the inventory. Anyone can add buildings, floors, rooms, whatever. So when you will upgrade to the next version, it will still be the case, but you have the possibility to toggle this to prevent the modification of global compound database unless you give explicit rights to some users. So if you toggle that, then this compounds database won't be accessible anymore, and so all this will be grayed out. So here, if I remove myself from these permissions, we can see that I cannot add something. I can still, of course, see the different things, but you see all the fields are read-only. I cannot modify anything. And so it's up to you, if you toggle this, to add the permissions for editing either the compounds or the inventory location to the users that should have the rights to do it. So that's also something I think that will be very appreciated, especially in big instances where they have many users. And of course, we still have in mind the possibility to add compounds in there that would be hidden from the rest of the people. So currently, everything that is added in there is public. So we didn't have time yet to implement a proper or a simple permission system for the compounds, but we didn't forget you. We know we will add this eventually. Then we have, so that was the permissions for the component and inventory location. The spreadsheet editor, Moustapha showed it. We can send emails to users of a bookable resource, as Moustapha showed you. The per team user archival status. Then there are a lot of quality of life improvement, I would say, and also in the user interface. So, for instance, if you use an experiment, you see that all the links here, they are regrouped under a links section. So they take less vertical space than before. Talking about vertical space, we really worked on making sure that the main text would be higher up in the page, because in the previous version, if you opened an experiment template, for instance, in edit mode, you would have to scroll up until the bottom to see the main text starting. And a user made this remark on GitHub, that there was so many administrative fields, let's say, on top of the actual content, that it was a bit weird. So we really redesigned a lot of these aspects to make them easier to work with, and taking less vertical space. So we saw the better table for listing and managing users. So I hope this will be more useful. And in fact, regarding what I was talking about the columns here for the rows, if I want let's say the cast number to be stuck on the left, I can grab it and put it here on the left, same with the molecular formula, and then I can browse the rest of the table like this. So I think we could totally have the same stuff for the columns, also for the rows in the spreadsheet editor. Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Okay. Yeah, regarding the notification, also we made the errors not disappear by themselves. So when there is an error, you will need to actually check to close the notification. So this will hopefully make it also easier for users to report the actual error. We also made it, so this is a message for sysadmin, we made it so that when you have like a fatal error, like really unhandled error, you will get a UUID that will be shown to the user, that will make it very easy for you to find it in the logs. Also, the browser remembers the last identity provider. So these are for the ones that are using SAML connection. So the browser will remember the last one that you used. Same for the team in which you sign on. So if you're part of several teams, and 99% of the time you log in the second or third team, you won't have to select it. It will remember. Little quick search. Regarding the exclusive edit mode, we had some users reporting that from time to time it didn't work as it should. And so this was problematic, of course, because you don't want to have to wait for the timeout of this edit log. And so we simply added an override button to allow users knowingly to override the edit log, because they know that the other user is just gone home, and they know that they are not editing it, but it's just a bug in the software that made it still appear as if they are still editing it. And then there are also there is a ton of stuff that was added. We added the Estonian language, thanks to Antti for participating with the translation. And yes, regarding authentication, you now have the possibility to have second factor authentication, not only for local authentication. So before it was only for local authentication. So what I call local authentication is email and password. If you used centralized authentication, you could not enforce the two-factor authentication from this thing. So now you can actually enforce the MFA for a class of users on all the authentication procedures or settings or whatever. And then we fixed a bunch of bugs, of course, like always. Yeah, we did penetration testing also with a security researcher company, and they really only found like 2 super informational issues, so really nothing worrying at all. For the sysadmins, we added also some information about the uploaded file storage and the little thing. There was also some contribution from Patrick Kirby's to add some options for the S3, and a note also that could be interesting for sysadmins. Previously, if you were pointing your image, your container software, basically to point to the image with the tag latest, it would include also the alpha and the beta version. So now it's not the case anymore. Latest means stable. Before it meant latest, meaning like the latest version that was up, even if it's not a stable version. And now latest means stable, which is better because it's what most users expect. And it also prevents someone from accidentally upgrading the production system to an alpha version, for instance. You can still use the edge tag if you want to live on the edge. Okay, so that's it for the like the major features that you will find in the software, and then you will see a lot of little things that makes your life easier. There is I don't know many hundred of commits over the 2 months, so I cannot list all the changes. Yeah.
About that, I just had because I saw a question about it, and it's on the big changes on version 5.3 also. It was on the scheduler. I also forgot about that. Sorry. It was Bertrand Richard's question about a post on Twitter a few weeks ago about many improvements on the scheduler, like multi-resource booking. And I wanted to show you because it's indeed something I think we maybe talked about it on a video, but not on the community meeting. So I will just share my screen. And so now on the new version, you can indeed select multiple resources, which will be displayed this way, and you can book them at the same time. You can also review the selected items and in the end choose just one of them. You can also check them directly from here. And what I wanted to show as well is that, for example, if you have no item selected, so when you first come on the scheduler, you can just out of the box select a spot and then select the resources. So that's kind of the upgrades that we had, because in the previous version we could not do anything unless we selected an item, a resource. So that's the one of the big changes we had in the scheduler. So now you can also filter them pretty much easily. So just select the ones you want, and you can also filter by owner, by scope, etc. So from my team, the ones I did myself, or everything, and that's pretty much most of the changes that we did on the scheduler.
Great, thanks, Moose.
My pleasure.
Yes, there's a bunch of questions. Nico, do you want to go through these on your own, or do you want me to read them out?
I think it's better if you read them out because you have less of a strong accent than me.
Okay.
And then I can answer them.
Okay, so first question, does removing base permissions as sysadmin retroactively change the default base permission set in the user settings?
No, and I'm sharing the link of the documentation that explains how to run a SQL query to fix them a posteriori. And of course, eventually we can also have a button somewhere like to make it to also put it everywhere. It's just that for the moment, if you want to be retroactive, you need to do it through the SQL direct queries. And I just want to mention also that if you want to do that, make sure that your users are aware about this change because they might rely on it. Maybe it's important for them. So make sure that it's a decision that everyone agrees upon.
Okay. I'm just going to say, I think we're probably going to go over the hour a bit, but there's some really important questions in here, so I think it's worth it to get to these. So if you have to leave now, thank you so much for joining us, and please watch the recording for the answers to these questions. And we'll make sure you've signed up to the eLabFTW newsletter, because that is how you find out when the next release is coming out and also when the next community meeting is coming out. And I will post that link in just a second. So the next question is everyone possible as an ACL permission?
Yeah, hi. Thanks. Yeah, so basically the question is like if someone would want to prevent or set a setting that all users can't select anyone, including unauthorized users. But could someone then choose to add this in the second step with the advanced permissions or the ACL permissions?
You can disable the everyone, including anonymous user. Basically, you can disable any of the base permissions. I don't know if that's really what you're asking.
Yes, but then can you add this later with the ACL permissions? Like if I want to choose like as a security precaution for my instance, I want to disable this permission as a base permission, but give users the option to enable basically exactly this permission for everyone.
If you disable, then the users cannot put it back.
Right, but I'm not talking about the base permission. I'm talking about the advanced permissions.
Yeah, the rest of the permission, so not the base permission. Yes. There is no way to disable any of them. So they will always be able, if they want to extend a base permission to other teams. So this, if you feel it's a necessary evolution to prevent, for instance, sharing with other teams or other users.
No, that's not the direction. Like the question is, it's basically sharing. Like if I want to open the instance and I want to allow some experiments to be able to be read by with everyone without login. Currently, I think like with the advanced permissions, you can select teams and users and user groups, but like not everyone or like not unauthorized persons, correct?
No, you can have it's called a public permission. So everyone, including anonymous users. So if you allow anonymous users to log in some sort of, to your instance, they will be able to see only these ones, the ones that are marked as public.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for that. Okay, next question is, what happens when a user deletes a resource category when there are items bound to that category?
Not much, meaning that the items are still bound to that category. It's just that the category doesn't appear anymore in the list of categories, but nothing happens basically to the, because it's a soft delete also. So nothing happens to the existing resource categories.
And the next question is, can a user be archived in one team but still be active in another team?
Yes, that's really the idea that we had in mind for implementing the archival status per team.
Okay, yeah, I know a few people had asked for that. Next question, as admin can manage the user associations, is this done by the admin from the first team, or can you grab people to fill your new team?
If you are given the right to manage user association, you can do it for any users or any team. So I'm not sure about
I think this is related to the question that came right after it, about managing the user team relationship. A user with that right can manage this for all teams, such as add users to a team that they are not an admin of.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Next is, do team admins need to deactivate editing status and categories with the new version to keep the level of accessibility from before?
Yes, that's true. And so normally most of the time, when we implement a new feature, we make it backward compatible, meaning that the default behavior of the software will be the same as before. It's just that you will have more options if you wish to. In that case, we didn't follow that principle because we believe that it was kind of wrong before, and so we correct it now, making the status and categories available to users by default. I think will be a good thing that most people will want to keep like this. So you're right, Hussein, we should communicate on it, but that's what we are doing right now. And it's true that, yeah, before you update to 5.3, in fact, it makes sense as a coordinator or a sysadmin to send the link to the blog post, but know also that in any case, when you make an upgrade, all the users get a little notification with the link to this blog post. So if they take the time to read it, they will see it.
Okay, I feel like there was another comment that was also a question in the chat, but maybe it's been deleted. Yeah, I don't see it anymore. Any more questions before we close the meeting? It's looking good. Well, as always, there's a lot of conversation happening on the GitHub and in the Gitter chat, so make sure that you are in those. One last question. Okay. Does the inventory currently allow for an inventory list or stock list so that you always have an overview of how many items are still available?
So we have a CSV export that allows you to see the content of it. That's all that we have for now to really like export the full inventory list.
Yeah, I know this is this seems like a pretty elaborate thing to be able to add. Okay, yeah, I'm not finding that other question. So I guess we'll say thank you so much to everyone who asked questions, and to Philip and Moustapha and Nicolas for presenting. The next meeting, we haven't quite chosen a date yet, but it'll probably be end of November, and make sure you're signed up to the newsletter so you get the notification about that. We are always available by email if you have any questions, and we look forward to just seeing the conversations happening on GitHub. So thanks everyone for joining, and have a great rest of your day, and see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.